Welcome to the Authentic Leader Show podcast. Today's podcast is called The One Thing That's Keeping You from Achieving Your Goals. It's an episode about adding one simple step to double your goal achievement. Welcome to the Authentic Leader Show. The Authentic Leader Show is the podcast about technology leaders who are crushing the bell curve of team performance by leading high-performing technology teams. Now, have you ever struggled with achieving goals and maybe you're just burnt out on goals? So tell me if one of these situations describes you. You diligently create goals using the S.M.A.R.T goal format or maybe some other kind of template, right? You're using that because you've been told all your career that you need to have solid goals and they need to meet this criteria in order to be considered a good goal. So you're following some sort of a format or a goal template of some sort. Or another one is that you start off each year just super excited and motivated to accomplish your goals. I know I am, right? Because I feel like finally this year, I feel like I've got it. I finally have these goals down, what they need to be, and I finally am starting this year off. I'm very excited and I'm motivated to accomplish these goals. Or maybe even another one is that you feel maybe you're exhausted about having completed your goal creation exercise. And you consciously, or maybe you even subconsciously, just kind of forget about them, right? I mean, it's an exhausting exercise. I mean, because you're doing one of these things, what you do is you're finding that the S.M.A.R.T format, it's hard to meet all the requirements of what's considered a good goal. I know I've always kind of struggled with that. Even though I kind of follow it, I think it's a good guideline, but I don't know that it is the end-all be-all for creating good goals. It's maybe a starting point, but I sometimes struggle with meeting each one of those criteria with a goal. I know it's a good goal. I feel good about the goal, but I'm just having trouble meeting that. After carefully crafting each of your goals, you now are jumping right back into the daily urgencies that are taking the priority of your day-to-day activities. I mean, you may have disconnected yourself for a while or allowed yourself some time to create and master these goals and craft them just so perfectly, only to go right back into the reality of your day-to-day kind of emergencies and urgencies that you're taking care of. Another is that your goals just kind of end up being put away to be looked at later, right? Only to realize that you really didn't accomplish your goals until you get to the year-end review, or maybe when you're writing next year's goals and you start to have that realization of the reality of what really happened with your goals. If you've experienced one of these, then you are probably burnt out on your goals, like me, right? I get burnt out on these too. If you never want to or even think about goals again, I have something I want to share with you. I want you to come back and reconsider goals again, because I think I have something that's going to help you, because I help leaders trying to figure this out all of the time. Inside of the Authentic Leader Framework, I have a program called Authentic Success. And it's all about what you need to create success that authentically fits you. Now, when you apply these simple principles and tools, you will experience the authentic success that I believe that you really truly deserve, right? Don't we all deserve that? Now, since the Authentic Success program, it's actually a multi-module program. I won't be able to cover all of them today. I'm not going to overwhelm you with all of that. But I am going to share with you one simple step that you can add to all of your goals that will actually double your chances of success with each one of those goals. Just apply this one simple step. Now, before I share that one simple step, I want to make sure that you avoid these mistakes that I see that most leaders make when they're making their goals in the first place. Well, the first mistake they make is that they make goals to fit into a goal-making formula. And I don't think that goals need to fit into a formula, quite honestly. I mean, they may be guidelines. That might be a reference to consider as you're creating your goal. I think as long as your goal is clear to you and you know what it means, that's good enough, right? And there's a book that I'm actually just finishing right now. It's called Tiny Habits. I'm actually reading it slow because I'm implementing many of the exercises that are in this book called Tiny Habits. It's really had a profound impact and effect on me. But the book is called Tiny Habits, and it's by B.J. Fogg. And in that book, he describes and explains that goals can be either aspirational or outcome based. And outcome based is the kind that I think most people are probably familiar with. It's a result that you create. But what BJ talks about, and I also subscribe to this too, is that your goals can also just be aspirational. You describe it in a way that it's the aspiration of what you're trying to achieve and what you want to accomplish. And again, as long as you are happy with it and you understand what it is, that may be actually good enough. So stop beating yourself up if you don't have outcome-based or results-based goals. That may be okay. Or another mistake that I find leaders are doing is that you're writing goals to impress your boss, or to impress your team, or to just impress someone else. And goals are and should be personal and only impress you. Now, the consequences of making these mistakes is that you already know, right? You will fail to achieve or you will be disappointed with the goals that you set for yourself. Or maybe the goals that you do achieve, they're really someone else's goals and they don't fulfill you. Now, I help leaders to create leadership goals that fit them inside of this authentic leader framework, including this one simple step that most leaders never add to their goals. Now, I've had a love-hate affair with goals throughout my entire career. I spent most of it in corporate America. And what happened is that of course, my year-end process had been to create a goal that was cascaded down from my boss. And of course, it was cascaded down from their boss as well, right? It's a whole cascading of goals. If your goals should align to what your boss's goals are. And once my goals were modified, of course, based on feedback from my boss, they were approved and I couldn't wait to file them away because it was just a laborious process, right? And it was just a lot of energy. And honestly, I was glad that they were approved and I'm glad they were done. And I just wanted to file them away so I could get on to the business of doing what I really needed to do. And I'd look at them again when I was preparing for my year-end performance review, like maybe many of you do. And it was then that I either felt I was either surprised or I was relieved when I discovered how closely I either achieved or of course I didn't achieve my goals. And it wasn't until I added this one simple step to my goal planning process that I began to more intentionally and successfully achieve my goals. So here's what I did, okay? If you're taking notes, this is the point where you want to take notes. For each goal, that I would describe the action that I had to take that would help me lead me to my goal, right? So I have the goal, and now I'm identifying what's the action I need to take. Maybe just one action. And I call this the action steps, right? You got to add what's the action you're going to take for each of your goals. Now, I didn't know all of the action steps, which I'm going to come back to in just a moment. I just described as best I could the actions that I knew that I would need to take to accomplish each of my goals. Now, the action steps for each goal helped me to see what action I needed to plan to do, right? And I would describe each action as a result that I would produce so that I was clear when that action was complete. I needed to be able to actually check that action off. I needed to cross it off so that I can now move on to whatever the next action was. And so once an action was complete, I would then, of course, start the next action, right? You typically will have multiple actions that are going to help you to achieve your goal. I just listed the actions that I could identify. Most of the time, I only needed to identify a minimum of just one action for each goal. And then the other actions that I couldn't determine at first, they were easier to identify after I started. It's amazing sometimes the clarity that you get once you identify it, and actually once you complete an action, that now that that's done, what's the next thing now I need to do that's going to help me get to my goal? You don't have to spell it out. You don't have to have entire steps from point A all the way to point Z when you have accomplished your goal, all the steps in between there. All you need to do is just identify what's that one next step. What's the first thing that I'll need to do? And I suggest strongly, and actually BJ Fogg talks about this too in the book Tiny Habits, is just start very tiny, right? What's the single smallest action you might need to take? Not only am I working toward my goals through the actions I'm taking, I also help technical leaders to do the same thing with the Authentic Leader Framework. Now, if you have ever struggled with creating goals, determining action steps, or remaining accountable to your commitments, well, now is the time to probably fix that. I want you to end your cycle of not achieving goals, and I don't want you to be in this rut of just not consistently achieving your goals. And this one step can do it. And I can help you to determine leadership goals that fit you. Determine your action steps as well, and then, of course, hold you accountable to your commitments. So let's talk. I mean, if you can relate to anything that I've shared today, I really think that you need to schedule a short strategy call where we will discuss whatever your current strategy is, right? What's working for you and where might you need help? I'll even help you with identifying what are some actionable ideas that will just get you started. And no matter how small or how big they are, before we end that call, I'm going to help you with what those actionable ideas are. So schedule a strategy call today. You can go to AuthenticSuccessOnline.com and then click on the button that says Free Strategy Call. It's as easy as that. In the coming weeks now, I have a special announcement I do want to share with you, because in the coming weeks, I will have a special announcement about a unique new service that I'm offering. There's a wait list that you can join at AuthenticSuccessOnline.com/interest. Follow us on Facebook by going to /Authentic Leader Now. Connect on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. You can find me at /I am Christopher Jones. You can find more information and other free resources are also available at ChristopherRJones.com. Hey, I just want to thank you for joining us today. Come back next week for another podcast episode.